When you go no contact with a narcissist, most people assume the narcissist moves on. What they don't realize is that the narcissist doesn't move on. They wait. And what they're waiting for is something so specific, so predictable, and so entirely within your control that understanding it changes everything. There is a fundamental misunderstanding that most people carry into no contact with a narcissistic personality, one that shapes their experience of the silence in ways that make the silence considerably harder to maintain than it needs to be. The misunderstanding is this: that the narcissist is experiencing the no contact the way the target is experiencing it. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist does not enter the silence of no contact with the emotional weight that the target brings to it. They do not experience it as a loss to be processed, a relationship to be grieved, or a situation whose permanence must be confronted and accepted. They experience it as a temporary condition, a gap in the supply line that has a predictable resolution timeline, and they approach it with the patience of someone who has, through extensive observation of this specific person across the entire duration of the relationship, developed a reasonably accurate model of how long that person can sustain a difficult position before the internal cost of maintaining it exceeds the internal cost of ending it. This is the waiting game architecture, and it is built on something the narcissist accumulated across every previous interaction with this target: a detailed, functional understanding of their emotional endurance, their attachment patterns, their specific vulnerabilities to loneliness, their particular sensitivity to feeling that a connection is being permanently lost. Pay attention to what this reveals about the no contact period from the narcissist's perspective, because it is not experienced as a silence that might be permanent. It is experienced as a countdown, a period of managed waiting, during which the narcissist remains essentially confident that the target's own emotional system will eventually do the work of ending the no contact without requiring any direct intervention. This is where the breakpoint calculation reveals its function. The narcissist is not simply waiting passively. They are waiting with a specific expectation, one built from everything they observed about this particular person, about when the discomfort of the absence will become more difficult to tolerate than the discomfort of breaking the silence. Most people miss this warning sign because no contact feels, from the inside, like an act of self-possession and resolve. And it is also, from the narcissist's perspective, a clock that is already running, ticking toward a moment that their model of this person suggests is coming. The hidden reason understanding this shifts the dynamic is simple. A clock only reaches its predicted endpoint if the prediction was accurate, and the prediction was built from who this person was during the relationship, not necessarily from who they are capable of being when they understand what the waiting game is actually designed to produce. There is a specific form of behavior that the narcissist deploys during no contact that most people never identify as behavior at all, because it doesn't arrive as direct contact, doesn't produce anything that could be clearly identified as a manipulation attempt, and maintains a surface plausibility of coincidence that makes it almost impossible to call out without appearing unreasonable. It is the passive Hoover, and it operates precisely in the space between contact and silence. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's apparent silence during no contact is rarely as complete as it appears. What looks like total withdrawal is frequently a calculated strategy of maintained peripheral visibility, a deliberate management of the narcissist's presence in the spaces that border the target's life without crossing the threshold that would constitute a direct contact attempt, a social media post that touches on a topic the target would notice, an appearance in a shared space that could plausibly be explained as coincidence, a mutual contact who mentions, seemingly in passing, something about the narcissist's current life that seems designed to land with specific emotional weight. None of these are accidents. Each is a precisely calibrated signal sent along a channel that maintains the narcissist's presence in the target's awareness without providing anything concrete enough to be named as manipulation. Pay attention to what this passive visibility is designed to do, because its function is not to re-engage the target directly. It is to interrupt the target's internal processing. The no contact period, when it is functioning as intended, creates a psychological environment in which the target's emotional system can begin to process the relationship without continuous interference from the narcissist's presence. The passive hoover is specifically designed to prevent that processing from reaching completion, to keep the narcissist's existence circulating in the target's awareness just frequently enough that the internal distance required for genuine detachment never fully develops. This is where the engineered reminder system completes the passive hoover's function, because the narcissist's peripheral visibility is supplemented by a deliberate deployment of targeted reminders. Significant dates that arrive with suspicious emotional precision, shared memories that surface through mutual contacts at moments when they will have maximum impact, strategic social visibility that ensures the target encounters evidence of the narcissist's continued existence at regular enough intervals to prevent the silence from becoming genuinely complete. Most people miss this warning sign because each individual reminder seems explainable. The significant date arrived because it was a significant date. The mutual contact mentioned the narcissist because they were having a conversation. The social media visibility was just visible. But the pattern of these reminders, examined across the full duration of the no contact period, reveals a consistency that coincidence cannot explain. The narcissist was never silent. They were simply speaking through channels that don't require a response to confirm they were received. There is a quality to the narcissist's monitoring during no contact that distinguishes it from ordinary post-relationship awareness. And it is visible in what the monitoring pays attention to, what it is looking for, and how the information it gathers shapes the timing of what comes next. The narcissist is not simply keeping a general awareness of the target's existence during the no contact period. They are watching for something specific. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's re-engagement strategy is not deployed on a fixed timeline. It is deployed opportunistically, timed not according to how long the no contact has lasted, but according to what is currently happening in the target's life. And the vulnerability window monitoring that runs continuously beneath the narcissist's public performance of having moved on is specifically calibrated to identify the moments when the target's resolve is most likely to be weakened, not by the narcissist's tactics, but by the target's own circumstances, a significant loss, a period of visible stress, a major life transition that produces the specific emotional combination of uncertainty and loneliness that the narcissist's presence once temporarily addressed, a public indication that things are difficult. A post, a comment, a piece of information routed through mutual contacts. That signals a vulnerability window has opened. Pay attention to the timing of the narcissist's re-engagement attempts relative to these windows, because the correlation, when examined honestly, is too consistent to be coincidental. The narcissist doesn't reach out when things appear to be going well for the target. They reach out when the target's public or semi-public presentation suggests that the internal conditions for re-engagement are most favorable. This is exactly what they want you to believe is concern. The hidden reason behind the timing reveals it as calculation. Then comes the social proof manipulation, running alongside the vulnerability monitoring as its complement. While the narcissist waits for the target's circumstances to create a natural opening, they simultaneously manage their own public presentation with a specific audience in mind. Most people miss this warning sign because the narcissist's public happiness seems genuine. The new relationship looks real. The apparent thriving looks earned. The hidden reason it is staged with such completeness is that it was never designed for the general public. It was designed for one specific viewer, transmitted through the channels most likely to reach them. calibrated to produce the specific emotional responses of jealousy, regret, and the particular fear that the decision to go no contact may have been a mistake the target will spend considerable time regretting. Because those emotional responses, if they land, create exactly the internal conditions that the vulnerability window monitoring was looking for. There is an infrastructure that the narcissist maintains during no contact that most people never identify as infrastructure, because it is built from relationships that appear entirely separate from the dynamic operated through people who are rarely aware of the role they are playing, and produces its effects through channels so indirect that tracing any individual piece of information back to the narcissist requires a degree of analytical attention that the emotional intensity of the no contact period rarely permits. The proxy contact system. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's social network was never simply a collection of personal relationships maintained for their own sake. It was always simultaneously a resource, a pool of connections whose trust, goodwill, and genuine concern for both parties could be selectively activated to serve the narcissist's current operational needs. During the relationship, this network served functions of triangulation, validation, and supply supplementation. During no contact, it serves a different but structurally identical function, delivering what the narcissist can no longer deliver directly. The mutual friend who reaches out with apparently independent concern, the family member who mentions, in what seems like ordinary conversation, that the narcissist has been struggling, the colleague who passes along information about the narcissist's current emotional state with a frequency and specificity that seems slightly too precise to be incidental. Each of these contacts is carrying something, a message, an emotional impression, a piece of carefully constructed information that was sourced from the narcissist and routed through a trusted channel, specifically because the trusted channel bypasses the defenses that direct contact would trigger. Pay attention to the content of what arrives through these proxy contacts, because it follows the same pattern as every other re-engagement tactic in the narcissist's repertoire, simply delivered through a different medium. The vulnerability performance, the suffering display, the implicit suggestion that the no contact is causing damage that the target has the power to end. The carefully timed information about the narcissist's current state that seems designed to reactivate guilt, empathy, or the specific form of caretaking impulse that the relationship conditioned in the target over time. Most people miss this warning sign because the information arrives through people they trust, which is precisely the reason it was routed through them. This is where the escalating absence narrative completes the proxy contact system's function. Because as the no contact extends beyond the point the narcissist model predicted it would break, something shifts in the social management strategy that was running alongside the passive waiting. The narrative about the target's silence begins to change. What was initially framed in the narcissist's communications with mutual contacts as a temporary difficulty or a misunderstanding that would resolve itself begins to be reframed as something that reflects on the target's character. The silence that the target is maintaining as a boundary becomes, in the narcissist's circulating account, evidence of cruelty, emotional immaturity, or a vindictive refusal to allow reasonable resolution. What most people don't realize is that this narrative shift serves a dual purpose. It manages the narcissist's social presentation, positioning them as the reasonable party attempting resolution in the face of the target's inexplicable refusal to engage. And it creates social pressure, the specific discomfort of knowing that your silence is being characterized in ways you cannot correct, to people whose perception of you matters through channels you no longer have access to. The hidden reason this tactic is deployed, specifically when the no contact has extended beyond the predicted breakpoint, is that it is designed to introduce a new cost to maintaining the silence, a social and reputational cost that the original resolve to maintain no contact was never calibrated to account for. Pay attention to what this tactic requires the target to do in order to counter it. It requires them to break the no contact, to explain, defend, and provide their account, which is exactly the engagement the narcissist system has been waiting to receive since the silence began. Most people miss this warning sign because the impulse to correct a false narrative feels like self-protection. The hidden reason it functions as a trap is that self-protection in this specific context is indistinguishable from supply delivery. There is a moment that arrives in the narcissist's no-contact strategy when the passive waiting, the peripheral visibility, the vulnerability window monitoring, the proxy contact system, and the escalating absence narrative have all been deployed without producing the break in silence that the system was designed to generate. And in that moment, the strategy shifts from passive to active. The strategic reentry attempt arrives, and its defining characteristic, the one that distinguishes it from every preceding indirect tactic, is its apparent innocuousness. What most people don't realize is that the narcissist's direct reentry attempt, when it finally comes, is almost never identifiable as a reentry attempt at the moment it arrives. It does not announce itself as a bid for re-engagement. It does not present itself as the culmination of weeks or months of indirect maneuvering. It arrives wearing the costume of something entirely reasonable, a practical question that genuinely seems to require a response, a piece of information that appears to be offered in good faith, a brief and apparently emotionally neutral contact that seems to ask for nothing more than a simple acknowledgement. Pay attention to what this apparent innocuousness is designed to produce, because the re-entry attempt was never about the content of the contact. It was about the response, any response, because any response constitutes a break in the no contact that resets the dynamic to a condition where the narcissist's tactical toolkit becomes fully operational again. This is where the first response, as reset, reveals the most important behavioral truth in the entire no-contact dynamic. Most people miss this warning sign because the re-entry attempt seems so minor that responding to it seems equally minor: a brief reply, a simple acknowledgement, a response that closes a specific practical matter without opening anything emotional. The hidden reason even this response resets the dynamic is structural. The no-contact's power comes entirely from its completeness. A boundary that has one exception has communicated something about the existence of exceptions, and exceptions in the narcissist's tactical assessment are not endpoints, they are entry points, and entry points, once identified, are what the entire strategy was always designed to find. When you examine the complete architecture of what the narcissist waits for during no contact, the breakpoint calculation built from detailed observation of the target's emotional endurance, the passive hoover that maintained peripheral visibility without crossing the threshold of direct contact, the engineered reminder system that kept the narcissist's existence circulating in the target's awareness, the vulnerability window monitoring that timed re-engagement attempts to arrive when circumstances had weakened resolve, the social proof manipulation designed to penetrate the silence through jealousy and regret, the proxy contact system that routed messages through trusted third parties, the escalating absence narrative that introduced social and reputational costs to maintaining the silence, the strategic re-entry attempt that arrived disguised as something entirely reasonable, and the first response is reset that required only the smallest acknowledgement to return the entire dynamic to a condition where the narcissist's tactical advantage was restored. What becomes visible is something that the word waiting barely captures. It is a strategy, patient, layered, and built with the specific knowledge of one particular person accumulated across the entire duration of a relationship, that was always on the narcissist's side, more observational than it appeared. What most people don't realize is that no contact works not because it communicates something to the narcissist. It works because it provides nothing, no data, No emotional signal, no vulnerability window, no response that could function as a reset, no entry point that could be identified and exploited. The narcissist waits for one thing during no contact. Evidence that the silence has an edge, a point where it becomes uncomfortable enough to break. The only way to deny them that evidence is the same way the silence was established, completely, consistently, and without exception.